Hello everybody, it is Mike Levin on Thursday, February 25th, 2021, and I thought I'd leave this screen up on the first of my virtual desktops just to make the point that I always put a terminal in screen one, and from here I cd into GitHub. Always important to know that from my home directory, and this is my Windows home directory. That's an issue, not really my Linux home directory, but from my Windows home directory, I keep a GitHub folder, and from there I can go into the location. Well, no, that's what we're going to be talking about today, but I always go into my journal from screen one, and then I vim journal.txt, and then I use my keyboard shortcut for starting a new entry. But I thought I'd start you at the Microsoft Ubuntu greeting, because we're still in the process of reminding you that my system that I'm running here, and this very much has to do with today's video, is a Windows box, starting with that big white box, which is the perfect symbol for the hardware abstraction layer, because, you know, we deal with so many abstractions that are abstract. It's nice to have one where your white boundary box is actually real hardware. And inside of there, as anyone who's been following my videos by now knows, I have a Windows 10 install. And side by side with that, I have a Linux install. This magic is made possible through the Windows Subsystem for Linux. Linux is a side-by-side operating system with Windows now. And I drew these with boxes because it's pretty that way, but really I should have drawn that with circles, because the file system does in fact overlap. So even though they're side-by-side operating systems, from a file system perspective, you've got Windows, you've got Linux, and then you've got their respective file systems. I guess I'll just draw that in the middle, because the files are shared in common. And that is not always true, right? So I drew files in there because, you know, it seems everything on both sides is accessible, but conceptually, when you use the installers, particularly for Anaconda, it puts those set of files one place. So when you do a conda install, such as I did with Nbdev, it's in a different place from the pip install that I did here. Honestly, they probably can access each other's files, but because of paths and stuff, when you try using the features of, I said pip conda, that's not right, pip nbdev. It was completely the wrong message I had in there. So when you use the features of Nbdev on one side or the other, it's going to behave differently, and you can actually see this in that I can import Nbdev. So from Nbdev, show doc, import everything. The fact I can execute that showed me that my conda install worked correctly, right? That was a chance to put a little check mark here. However, the other side of that equation is going over to the terminal side. Now this is my Ubuntu terminal. To get to the right side, I have to choose my Anaconda base, right? Because you see here, I'm running under Python 3 as my kernel. That's the equivalent from a Anaconda prompt being in base. And this is where I did the conda install from. I can also go to my GitHub directory. I can go into that location. And then I can try executing one of those commands. First, I can type nbdev and try to get command line completion. Of course, it's not going to work because backslashes, you're on a Windows side. Even though it's an Anaconda prompt, this tells you it's just a path wrapper around the command prompt, not even PowerShell. So you don't have any of those fancy shell features, but I do happen to know that the word that comes next is build, and the word that comes after that is lib. So if the paths are set right, this should work, and it's not working, right? So that's the problem I hit yesterday that made me quickly back up and pivot and go, well, if not from the Windows side immediately after an install, why not from the Ubuntu side? So I cd into my GitHub, cd into that directory I'm using for nbdev to practice, to get started, to basically have my first positive experience. And then from here, I try that same command, nbdev. Now, first thing, I can do _tab, tabby. I got to hit it a couple times. I did that on the Windows side. And there's your command, there's your, look ahead to what's in the path that could be executed at this point. So build lib. Yeah, see here it does work. Converted, that's what's supposed to happen over here. So it's finding this out of the path somewhere here. Path nvenv, let's see, Windows, Linux, the path commands are different. Show Linux environment variables. I should get better at this. I don't want to have to Google this. You can see I've been on this page before. And it is printenv. So over here, printenv, I look for my /. This is my Linux environment. I can see all the various things that are in my path, right? I'm not even going to check them all. I just know it works. But where it doesn't work is worth checking. What's it finding? Echo. I know it a little better here because I've been on Windows for so many years. Oh, hey, almost, right? Give me credit for almost. It's not. It's not $signs around it. env. Windows. Show Windows env. Oh, yeah, path. It's not just env. It's echo path. No, they're saying they tried with echo path. Yeah. Oh, I had the percents right, not the word. Echo path. So your paths are one of your environment variables. I'm getting a few concepts sort of crisscrossed here, but the important thing is the path that you're looking at, and you will see that in your environment variables. There may even be multiple paths. Path. See, there it is, path. So this is actually interesting stuff. It took me a little bit of effort to get this, and so it's worth preserving. This is the kind of stuff I might go, this is my Linux path. And my Windows path. So first of all, you just preserve it. This stuff, if you have to Google it to look it up and stuff, it's nice to have it there the next time you need it. including the command you got to get it. Right? I included it there, but I didn't include it on this one, and that could be useful in the future because I'm just being repetitious because I had to Google it. So knowing your paths and your environment variables in general is just always a good idea. Now, I'm not going to fully try and debug this. I'm just going to make sure that I don't have a serious problem in getting started with Nbdev because, you know, this is a game changer. Be clear why I'm even spending time on this. Be clear, this is a game changer. Nbdev is what I'm saying. Nbdev is a game changer. And I'm reworking my tools. You know, I'm adjusting my tooling as I switch to new laptop. And even though I'm a Vim head, I love Vim. I love notebooks too. I would like to use Jupyter Notebooks for real development work. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. This guy, let's see who is in the video. You want to know who's behind all this? You want to know why it's important? You go to these documents. It all starts at nbdev.fast.ai. That's where all this starts. And then they give out a tutorial link and a minimal example link. So I believe somewhere in the tutorial, here you go. If we start watching that on YouTube, yep, you'll certainly
Okay, hi everybody. Welcome
this
to
guy.
This tutorial for Nbdev. And I am joined by Sylvain. Say hello, Sylvain.
So that's who's joining him, but it's
who you
this
guys
guy.
will know from Fast AI, and Alexis.
Hello.
Who you won't know.
And he doesn't introduce himself. He is Jeremy Howard. Yeah, Jeremy Howard. I got it right. So this guy created Fast AI. He also created Nbdev, and it brings development capabilities to Python is what I'm saying. So please and thank you, Jeremy Howard. So this is the person, there's people behind it. So there is a stack of stuff here, and it's a stack of stuff that even all you VS Code people out there, VS Code is lifting these ideas. This is where VS Code is lifting its ideas from. Namely the Jupyter Notebooks community. Right, that's what's going on here. So this is where so much stuff is being innovated and brought to noobs like me. I mean, I guess a final thing here you really ought to know is that this is very focused towards, and even though I use Vim and I look advanced, I'm the perpetual noob. This stuff is focused towards newcomers like me, the perpetual noob. Okay, so that's why this is important, but it's made for Macs. There's really no other way to say it. So the conda install worked on the Windows side, and I can do these imports like you saw happen here, but the commands, where the real magic happens, don't work. So let me clear all this path stuff here on the Ubuntu side. We don't need to see that, but we go up to one of these commands that works. Here on the Anaconda side, well, I don't want to clear the path yet. I just want to remind you that same command does not work. However, as we poke through here, we can find it in the path. The purpose of the path is to look in one location after another until it finds what it needs. Now there's some interesting exercises that could be done here, examining each path, but I kind of know what's going on from looking at this and from poking around in the past. I know that this directory here with the word scripts in it is, if I cd there, where I'm going to find those commands, nbdevs, without any dot extensions. Very, very curious, right? So a command without any extensions, first of all, there's exes in here, there's py files in here, so it could be anything. But a command without an extension is usually one of two things. It's a script file for Unix, or it's an executable for Unix or /Linux. It's not anything intended for Windows, because Windows is so dependent on those dot extensions. So let's open that location, which is the same, by the way. When you see me just type open and it works. Oh, well, here, I'm in these back prompts. See, that works over here because I set up that alias in my bash profile. But here, explorer.exe space dot, and that'll open this location. And we can see our nbdev files here and see what these culprits are, what's trying to run that won't actually run. Nbdev build libs. Is it even in there? Oh yeah, I'm going in the wrong order there. Nbdev build lib, double click it. What do you want to bring it up with? Let's try Notepad. And here, Control plus, here we see what is clearly a shebang bin script. Is there anything more Unix than that? So if you don't know, there is nothing more Unix than that. This is telling it to use the standard Unix script interpreter to execute the following. And it's handing command over to the Python executable. It's taking command line arguments. Then it's starting to execute Python in UTF-8, I guess, encoding mode, importing nbdev build lib. That's interesting to know. So since we can do an import, some of this stuff might be able to be accomplished directly in Notebook. In fact, I'm not going to try it. I could do that import, but this other stuff, this is very Unix-like. This is very Linux-like. That's never going to run under Windows. If that's what's being found first, when that path is examined and it goes, oh, here's a directory, I find that command, let me try executing it, it's not going to happen. So let me tell you why I went investigating this, because I really do want to use this tool, of course, is the first reason. But the second reason is when you go into this first location that tells you how to do this, nbdev.fast.ai, and you finally get down to the meat here, most of the way down the file, it's going to give you the instructions for how to install. That's what I did on the Ubuntu side, and that's what I did on the Anaconda side. So I followed these instructions, and it says Nbdev is tested to work on Ubuntu, Mac OS, and Windows. Okay. So it then goes to tell you got to go through this tutorial and this minimal example to get started. So, okay, there's stuff I don't know, but that's a showstopper for most people, right? Most people are not set up the way I am with Windows and Linux. So most people in this world are going to get to this part and it's not going to work because those command line things don't work. And so nbdev doesn't work on Windows, which is, like it or not, the majority of people out there. It doesn't seem that way sometimes because the people who develop this kind of stuff and go to conferences and make YouTube videos are all Mac users. However, the silent majority is Windows, and so one of the most interesting and important developments in the notebook space is seemingly inaccessible. However, since we got WSL, we can give it a good try, right? Because both of those things work here. Well, I can't even say the imports because I don't run Jupyter on the Linux side. I could, because I have the graphical user interface. That'd be a pretty good experiment. However, we can get the Jupyter imports to work on this side, and we can get the command line tools to work on this side. So I guess that's important, what I'm saying. Let me undo some of those red X's. That's not fair. You got two greens, okay? But, not the command line tools, CLI. Command line interface tools, no. And I'm not using Jupyter here, so I don't even know. But the second check mark that is required is on that side. So what am I saying here? What I'm saying is that right underneath this, where it tells me it works on Windows but doesn't, it now says, note that Nbdev must be installed into the same Python environment. Parse your words carefully. Python environment usually means some sort of virtual env, like virtual env or conda. It's got to be in the same one that you use for both your Jupyter server, clear enough. There's an Anaconda one that's completely being used here. We have got a Jupyter server, or we wouldn't have Jupyter Notebooks. And your workspace. Now you'll remember my workspace is always those Git locations. So it's getting a little messy, but if we clear and you look here, everything I always put in GitHub and in repo names underneath of GitHub. Same thing. Same thing here. So we've always got these workspaces. So is that the same? These are the same paths, right? It's the same actual files. This file location is the same as this file location. It's just one is under Linux and the other is under Windows. So does that satisfy this criteria? Because I've got 2 installs of Nbdev, right? This is 2 installs of Nbdev, no mistaking. This was as a result of the conda install, and this was as a result of the pip install, and it technically installed in 2 different environments, even under this Windows Subsystem thing I have going on here, except it does have common locations in the middle that they both put things into. And I'm kind of hoping that my whole problem here is not being caused by the fact that they both put scripts that work with no extensions to work with the command line. There might be a CLI command conflict. There might be a CLI command conflict, but I'm not entirely sure. That takes some debugging, which would have been caused from doing both of these installs. It's a possibility. However, my preferred work environment really is the Linux side anyway, so all this is really a way of saying, just to make sure that this is not as technically true as it implies. So we already know we can execute the commands from the Linux side, and we can do the imports in the notebooks on the Windows side. So maybe that's enough. And I continue going down this tutorial. So I'm past that. I'm past the installs. I've got a condition here where it might work for me. So really, we continue and we pick up where we left off on the last video. I edited those INIs, and I edited my core.p.ipynb. I added the hello function, world function, I added that stuff, and then I built the lib. This is what got me up to this point. This is the part that has an operating system dependency where it fails, I believe, on most people who have Windows today. And because I was uncertain, because there might be an installer conflict, a real long shot, I did go searching on Nbdev build lib for Windows, and here 15 days ago is, you know, them getting the same error. So I'm getting the same error as me. And that's where I was looking for that stuff. And that's where I was looking for that stuff. And that's where I was looking for him. But this goes on really in that it does appear that it's not working on Windows, which is really a darn shame here. So, you know, I'm going to help out the Windows environment, the Windows folks who want, you know, Nbdev. Get your butts on Linux, a real dev environment. And if you don't think so, Microsoft knows. And that's why they developed this whole Windows subsystem for Linux. It's, you know, what this is all about. So these kinds of problems, so I'm shifting my religion. I'm making sure that I can use NB notebooks, that I can use notebooks. You know, I'm making sure I can use notebooks for dev work. Without the homegrown convolutions I normally use, like nbconvert, which is, by the way, .ipynb to .py files, commands built into notebooks, which you can totally do. So early in some of my notebooks, I export a py file. You know, in my .ipynb files, I often export .py files of it. Very meta, so that I have a file for deployment. But there are sync issues. So primarily for me, it does other things, but primarily Nbdev fixes these Git-related sync issues for deploying notebooks, and I'll put that in parentheses because you're not really deploying the notebooks. As Python modules, as Python, you know, as Python scheduled, because I'm always scheduling as scheduled Python scripts, right? Okay, so that's what I'm working towards. I want to be able to do that. I want all the many advantages of Nbdev and how it fixes these issues that people who are trying to use notebooks for these purposes encounter. So some people may say just use VS Code. Long story. Yeah, it's about choosing your stack, who you're relying with. You know, there's religion here. I'm the first to admit that I've been hurt and fooled many times by things like VS Code in the past, and it's got all the earmarks of something that's going to do it again. So I am preferring to stay in the place where VS Code is stealing its ideas from, rather than the Frankenstein monster that's being created out of all these ideas. It's lifting from Google for its Electron Chrome platform to be based on, from the Jupyter land for the embedded REPL environment. I think it's even using the Jupyter engine to accomplish that. Anyway, I'm going off on rants when I really should be continuing this tutorial. Right, so I got the even the GitHub hooks working. So once you get to the bottom of this first page, you've pretty much used that up. They say, you know, you want to do this tutorial, and I did this. I edited the index.py and learned how that becomes the home page. I don't think I've actually published it yet because this is a practice thing. I don't need it actually published, but your index.ipynb becomes your home page and your README, okay? And that comes from using a similar command to what we did here, but you're building docs. Now you'll notice this is singular for lib. This sometimes trips me up, but for docs, it's plural. So you can see it turned your index.ipynb file into a readme.md, and if you go back into Jupyter Lab, you can actually see these files, you know, getting created here. So this file was edited, it's still sitting here, and every time you edit that and you run that command, it creates a new readme and a new index.html, presumably somewhere for publishing. There it is, for publishing under things like GitHub.io. So I'm making pretty good progress down Nbdev. Time to get rid of a lot of these browser tabs or distractions. So again, statefulness. You're working in Jupyter Lab. Jupyter Lab is about, Jupyter Lab with Nbdev is about being able to do this import. Being able to do these build commands. And with those two sides covered, there's some other automated stuff that happens on the Git side if it works. But that's really it. That's really it. Now we're polishing. We're like diving in and getting to know continuous integration is built in, blah, blah, add a class, blah, blah. So we got a lot of this. I understand. So adding links. So they're telling you how to format in Notebook, export cell, import Notebook, run tests in parallel, view docs locally, set up prerequisites. This is all like really awesome stuff. Test with, so, upload to PyPy when it comes time for you to do the PyPy stuff. Pipulate is in PyPy. So I'm going to be rebasing Pipulate, and it's going to be a Nbdev created thing. Rendering, right? Everything but what I'm really interested in, because I am essentially sitting on top of a Git repo that I've been making changes to. See, I modified all these files in the course of these tutorials. I actually manually edited these 3 files, and it generated this file, and it also generated some other files, but not everything is kept under the repo, which is like, I guess, a part of the point here. The things that actually reach GitHub are not going to be all your files. So core, making edits to this file is supposed to make edits to a .py file, and I'd like to show you that before I do one push. So everything, the premise is here, everything is a system. And the system that's created here is that whenever you run that makelib command, everything that is being exported goes into a module called core. Def hello again. Return hello again. So I've got a command here called hello again, which I invoke it. By the way, if those of you who are new to Python, first of all, I'll hit the escape key. A for above. I should have hit B for below because order sequence, I can rearrange the cells. If I just type hello again, it will tell you that, why, yes, this is in fact a function in memory in main called hello again. Why don't you call it by adding some parentheses? Oh, so you call a function by putting parentheses on it. Yes, hello again. Well, this is modified. I'll save it there. The habits that are being formed. I do believe the habit is to run nbbuildlib. I don't think that's going to happen for free on the Git commits and stuff, but maybe, I don't know. But it converted that, and now if I do a git status, there should be a .py file somewhere, because it updated something that gets exported into a .py file. So I know it put it in there, and I know it put it in the underscore init.py. So I'm going to cd into pipulate, do an ls, do a vim of dunder init, and I see that it just has a version in there. So did it really build the libs? I do not think it did. I think that I might be encountering the disconnect, because when I run this command, it does not have access to the Jupyter server in memory. It has access to another Jupyter server. And I don't know if it needs access to that being in memory to actually do this parsing, unless I'm missing something. What could I be missing? Oh, there's core.py. Let me look in there. Yay! Hello again. No, I was incorrect about where it puts it. So I'm keeping the video. This is me figuring out Nbdev. It's got something of a learning curve. Now, consider yourself lucky, because Jupyter Notebooks and Labs itself has such a low learning curve to get started. If you actually want to use it for development work, it's a little bit steeper of a learning curve. So I'm going to say, this is going to be, let's just call it pipulate. So there should be no too many similar words, right? I'm just going to call this foo, so that you see foo come up. Default export foo. Now I'm not even going to export any of this other stuff. This is a good test of whether in-memory things are required, which I can kind of see it doesn't. And this is good now. Things are turning in the good direction. The fact I can do this, I don't even know if I should save it. I guess I want to save it. Those files have to be updated on the drive at least. You got to concede it to something, right? Now I cd ... clear. I do that same command to build lib, right? Now I cd into pipulate, I ls, and there is foo. Foo has taken the place of core because I changed the word here from core to foo. So whenever you run the command line export tools, it uses that first comment where it says default something to establish what your package name is going to be, that everything that has an export in front of it gets exported to when you do that export. Now you can see it's not exporting this hide. That's not in that file. But what else is in the file? Only just the all equals. This is interesting. There's stuff to figure out. Dunder all. They're making use of some interesting conventions. Now I'm going to do cell def added by hand. return none. Return to Jupyter Notebook is what I'm saying. Quit. I'm down in that subdirectory, but that shouldn't matter. I can still do nb build lib. I go back out here. I do a refresh. I bet it put it in something called core. Did it create a core? No, I don't see that. Does it know it came from here? Maybe I should turn that back to core. Synchronization issues. Let me just double check of what I'm looking for. And maybe it's from where I did it. So there should be a new... Oh, it erased the cell I put in there. So... going backwards, building the lib. So there's different commands. I am sure I wiped it out. Let's try that again. I'm gonna vimfoo. So it should be added at the bottom, right? Is what I'm doing. Okay, so I added a new function. I really should just bring up a new one here so I don't have to keep exiting out, right? cd github, cd pipulate, nbdev underscore tab, two tabs. And now we can look at, see if there's something symmetrical reverse of nbdev. Not of nbdev, but of build docs. I'm glad there's not too many of these. Update lib. Well, that did not go so well. So I'm not going to, if you wish to convert notebooks instead, see how. So I mean, I'm just guessing it here, so don't take that too much to heart. But there is a bidirectionality to this that I am going to be mastering. And I changed this back to core, so that might even have some impact on it. But you get the idea. There's a lot to learn, to get to know here with this system, which essentially is going to, and I guess I do this on future vids, this is where I'm getting to. You're going to do something before you git commit and push, or something automatically is going to happen as a part of committing and pushing, so that all the metadata that's sitting here and living in the background is stripped out, and your git commits only have the diffs really that are meaningful from change to change in your notebook. And that's one of the two key things here for using it as a wholly standalone development environment. The other thing is that these subdirectories that seem to be outside the Git system, that's very interesting, because I'm definitely making changes, like, something new. I'm going to put something in here. I know it works in this direction, right? So if I go into any of these things that have an export, and I say hello again too, I run that command to do the, nbdev update lib. Oh, wish to convert notebooks instead build lib. Right, yeah, update lib. I did update lib again, so it's build lib. Jeez, nbdev build. Can I not backspace? Wow. Now that is an interesting mode I've never seen myself in. There, that's what I want. And so when you do that and you do a git status, I would expect there to be a .py file in here. But then that would conceptually be double tracking your .py files. So when you have stuff deployed on a server from out of your subdirectory, the pure.py files, that's not the version from the Git repo. You're not going to be cloning this whole thing onto the server. You're going to have maybe perhaps some parallel repo set up that's from out of a subdirectory. And then you have nested perhaps GitHub repos, which is never a good idea. I am going to have to think about this because, you know, using notebooks for development, pushing things out to PyPy and GitHub in its notebook form is great. However, I want to push it up to my servers in the .py form. It's auto-generating in order to have synchronization between deployed scripts and ones I can test on my local system in a notebook and do exploratory innovation. You see, I'm trying to get a kind of tight coupling. That would scare the heck out of a lot of people, but because I'm not DevOps for a company, I get to work that way. So picture time, lots of fun with picture time. My workflow is now a smaller white box over here because one of the white boxes out here is in fact a cloud server, right? So this is, you know, real hardware, usually Windows hardware because of what I've been doing lately. And this is, you know, cloud. Still real hardware there somewhere, just someone else's hardware that you don't know much about. And it's Linux, right? So here, I like to work let me fold that corner down. Back in my day, document files had these folded corners, and I like to work in notebooks. That's a Windows. I want to say Anaconda, but really Anaconda will eventually be taken out of the picture because of its licensing stuff. Jupyter is what we're talking about. I like to work in a Jupyter notebook in Windows because it takes advantage of the hardware. It works well. It's the path more traveled. However, I've got this Linux subsystem which is a lot like that cloud Linux. Right. So this is capable of exporting .py files. And those .py files go here under a scheduler. Where I can test it. And then there's a scheduler here in the cloud where after it gets tested, I can then push it up here so it runs pretty much identically. Now, the nature of the work changes. This is exploratory. This is where the development work goes. You play. You test. It's fun. And the fact that this works is like yay, but this py file, you know, if you have so little exposure to it, it's like, you know, what's happening to it, you know, the details of it here. The fact it's not under the same Git repo as your actual Jupyter notebook here is a little bit scary. And the fact that something that you might not be up close on the code for, taking this last step, going into something that is, you know, 24/7. The idea here is, you know, it's 24/7 reliable. That's what I'm working on today when I get back to my day job after this video is over real soon. You know, I'm working on this sort of part, and you know, this is a little bit concerning here in that you have so little exposure to the .py file when I switch to Nbdev. So, you know, this whole system, what I'm talking about here really is the fact that Nbdev can help me, you know, mature this whole process. You know, for notebooks, for this sort of stuff. You're on the beginning of my journey. This is one of a series of things that I am tweaking as part of my retooling. So this is new machine retooling. Another thing you're about to see is SQL Light Dict. It'll change your life. And let's see, a few other things that are really, oh yeah, I left just the right amount of room for it. HTTPX for concurrency. So these are the videos coming up where I'm going to be subtly adjusting sort of my whole tooling around my kind of, you know, I'm not a game developer. I'm not an app developer. I'm not a mobile developer. I just do development in the course of my day job. And to that end, I want to use the best tools out there. And a lot of people are going to go down this path of VS Code somewhere along the line. That deserves a different color. Somewhere along the line, VS Code is going to look like solutions to your problems. However, just know that there is a very traditional route of you being sucked down the vendor hole. And I guess before I wrap this up, this has been going on for a while, just one last video to just get a concept across, because I tend to start to go on these vendor rants and kind of pull myself back. There will always be a better tool out there. Your cup runneth over with stuff given to you for free. These are all the goodies that are thrown into the proprietary soup for you to like. And you'll find stuff like the Jupyter Notebook engine. Jupyter Notebook engine is one of them. That's what makes VS Code work so well as a REPL environment. And you are, my friend, some little mouse. More circles. I guess I should do the mouse in a different color. You are a mouse sitting on top of that cup that they gave you. Now, over time, what's going to happen is that the vendor is going to give you less and less. Those freebies are going to go away. Unless, of course, you pay for them. And you, my dear mouse, find yourself falling deeper and deeper into the cup of vendor dependence until the day comes where you are exactly where they want you to be, completely at their service. They don't give you anything, and you just pay and pay and pay and pay, and your only way to get back up, submit the money, and you can get back up to where you were. And this reoccurs, on average in every, 10-year cycle. Just enough for you to retrain and forget and forgive. So I look for the timeless tools. And the timeless tools, I am hesitantly bringing notebooks into my picture. Again, my picture is Linux, enough Linux to get your Python programs running. And then the way you write your Python programs is typically Vim. And you get it around by Git. Git moves things everywhere. So this is kind of, what I advise. However, because Vim is so controversial in so many ways, it's a much lower barrier to entry on notebooks for that Vim level. To let you get to a sort of dev zen. That lets you work your way towards mastery. I mean, the whole idea here is, you're going towards mastery on your tools. And anyone who says that VS Code is the path to mastery, I will just remind you, of Notepad++, TextMate, Sublime, Atom. For me, it goes a lot older. It goes to PFE, CED, Cygnus Editor, and the list goes on. And this is just, this is a lifelong endeavor, but all you really need is code in your web browser. And over time, code in the ubiquitous text editor of the world of tech. You could also do Emacs. This is a subject for another video. There you have it. Nbdev seems to be living side by side between a Windows Anaconda install that gets you Jupyter and a Ubuntu install that gets you all the command line tools. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon. And don't forget to subscribe.